Hey, it's me, ABSD, and welcome to the Inner Dialogue podcast. Today is April 2nd. It's 2:04 p.m., and this episode is going to be all about gender, my gender identity, how I came to using they, them pronouns, and how it's been and felt to show up in the world as me, someone who identifies as non-binary and has started to feel into using they, them pronouns. It's been an interesting journey and a journey that I have been on really ever since I shaped my head almost 2 years ago, but actively have been looking at and allowing myself to process through since December. I have known that navigating my gender was something that I was going to have to do, but knew that it was going to come at a time when I had enough space to actually look and feel into and learn about gender. I've done a lot of learning over the last few months about gender and what binary versus non-binary means and the boxes that are created by society. So the word binary simply means that there are two options. So in the case of gender, there is male and female. So non-binary is not fitting inside of one of those two options. And for me and my gender identity, I don't feel and fit inside of one of the two options. And so I feel like I fit in this other category that is outside of the binary, that I exist with both male and female. And sometimes it's a spectrum. Sometimes I fall really far on the feminine side, and sometimes I fall really far on the masculine side. And sometimes I don't feel like either. But having the freedom and the gender expression to show up in the world how I feel fit feels aligned and amazing for me in my life and in my body. I decided to use they, them pronouns because for a few months, starting back in January, actually, I started using she, they pronouns, and it felt like a stepping stone for me. How do I get to using they, them while learning how to be comfortable with that? So using she, they, nobody uses they as the pronoun because she is the default, is what I realized. And it was until I went to this gender conference and a little bit before that, I started to feel this uncomfortability around using the pronoun she, her. And it was then when I went to this gender conference and was around a lot of other people who use all different kinds of pronouns, but a lot of humans who identify as non-binary or trans and use they, them pronouns, and what it was like to just hear those pronouns more often. I have not been around a lot of people who use they, them pronouns. I don't have any active friends who use they, them pronouns either. So it's a foreign concept for me and something that I am still integrating into my life and psyche, and also referring to myself in that way. And there's a lot of grace that goes along with that for myself and also for others. Something I was talking about in therapy is that a person who is trying and messes up is much different than a person who just chooses to not respect your boundaries and your choices of how you're identifying in the world. And for me, being safe around the people who are in my life and them actively trying to identify me the way that I identify is important to me. And I've been having a lot of fear around having these gender conversations because I know that there are a lot of people who just won't understand. And it's not for me to help you understand. I'm happy to broach curiosity or answer questions, but it's also exhausting to have to sit and answer 100 questions from each person that I have this conversation with. And I have only so much space to give for it. And So this episode won't post for about 2 months, like all my episodes. And it gives me times to feel into it even further. Like I've been identifying using they, them pronouns exclusively for over 2 weeks now, but it really is going to give me time to feel into my gender identity and before I have these conversations with people. Because especially if you're following along with the podcast, you heard what my queerness means to me episode. And I talk about being pansexual and my sexuality. And it's not, that episode doesn't fully encompass what my queerness means to me now because I understand more of what embodies me as a human being. I'm not just a pansexual woman, I'm a pansexual non-binary human. And I see and understand that now clearly, but before I didn't. And going through that process and having conversations with people before the episode came out so that there are certain people in my life who I want to have these conversations with before they hear it on the internet, because that's important to me to be able to sit in space and give that the grace and gentleness that it needs for certain other people and relationships I have in my life. And that's a choice that I make and a choice that I like to be intentional about. And it's, wow. Sitting in this space and talking about my gender, it just feels like something that's been there forever, my whole life. And the example that I've used several times now that feels really like it encompasses my gender as best as I can is my whole life I've lived in a fat body. As long as I can remember, my weight has been a point of conversation or topic or something that has been something that people in my life have tried to change. Once you lose weight, you'll be more comfortable in your body. You'll be more comfortable with yourself. Here are these diets to go on so that you can feel more comfortable in your body and fit the size that society tells us that you need to be. So throughout my life, I've been on lots of different diets and have worked through different sizes of my life and my body. And every time that I would get down to a size where I would feel proud of it, I still had this feeling of uncomfortability and feeling of being unsafe inside of my body. And I just thought that's how all people lived. I just thought that was what was. I didn't know that you could get rid of that feeling and not feel unsafe in your body, because I always thought that the feeling that I had was attached to my weight. Fast forward to a year and a half ago, I learned to love my body, to love it the way that it looks now, and to love that it's mine, and to love the way it moves in the world and the sexiness that it embodies, and how I get to live in this bodysuit and make it my own and love it, every part of it. And I got to the other side of that and still had that feeling of uncomfortability and feeling unsafe in my body. And it was a wake-up call to me that there was something else here. It wasn't just that I lived in a fat body and was taught not to love myself, but there was something else under the surface. And as I continued to go through my journey last year, over the last year and a half, and uncovering a lot of shit in my closet and really beginning to pull out, my sexuality, the way that I show up in the world, my job, friendship, community, all of these different aspects, hobbies that have come out of my closet and become the embodiment of me, changing my name, all these different aspects. I still had this feeling of unsafety. And then I started to uncover and return home, this like feeling of homecoming, to this connection inside of me that allows me to not be in the binary box. The binary box has felt suffocating for me. It has made me feel unsafe in my body, in my mind, in my spirit. And again, I didn't know what it was. But 2 weeks ago, I was at a women's retreat. And if you're following along, episode 43 is when I use they, them pronouns for the first time in the podcast. But at that retreat, I showed up and I talked to these women about how I'm navigating my gender and want to show up in this space as me and use they, them pronouns and see how that feels and feel into it and see how I get to live and embody this. And I've never been more safe and seen in my entire life. And I've never felt more comfortably me. I've never felt like I could live in this body as safely as I do. And I came out of that weekend knowing that this feeling of unsafety is no longer there because I finally have found the answer of its source, of its root. And I had to uncover and go through many layers and up-levelings through this healing and processing journey to understand my body and my mind and my spirit and my gender expression. It's been a journey. So for those of you out there who are listening to this who might not understand the difference between sex, sexuality, and gender, let's do a little 101 course. So sex are the reproductive parts that you were born with at birth. So you could be male, you could be female, you could be intersex, and there are a lot of variations of intersex, over 70. And I learned a fact that 1 in every 426 individuals are born intersex. And to put that in perspective, 1 in every 10,000 individuals is born with Down syndrome. So a lot of humans are out there who are intersex and really just don't know because they're either not to an age where they're reproducing, or it's not being shown, or there's been no reason to discover it. But intersex is way more common than we realize. So that's sex. And I will always love that I was born female at sex, that I have female reproductive parts. I'm so fucking thrilled that I get to carry babies in this world and have children, and that my body can do that. Me identifying as non-binary doesn't take any of that away from me. It's still something that I am excited about and want to do in this lifetime. Then there's sexuality. Sexuality is who you are attracted to, the kind of person, right? Sex, sexuality. So this could be whether you're attracted to males, you're attracted to females, you're attracted to both, you're attracted to none, you're attracted to all of it. There's a lot of wide variation. My sexuality identifies pansexual, which means I'm attracted to all. And so I more find attraction in the actual person, personality, their values, rather than their reproductive parts. Then my gender is your expression to the world. So the way that you in your body express yourself to yourself and to the world. So if you fit into the binary box and you are a male and identify as male and your gender expression is male, then you're a cis male from birth and you identify as male in the world. Awesome. Likewise for female. And that's where we get transgender, because trans means transitioning. And so you're transitioning from one to the other. And so non-binary does fall underneath the trans umbrella, but not all non-binary people identify as trans. Some people identify as trans who are non-binary, and that often happens because they've transitioned some part of themselves to get to a point where they feel comfortable in their body to then call themselves non-binary. It means different to every single person because all of us have our own human experiences that have led us to whatever label feels comfortable for you. And that's what I love about the queer community and just love about how I've been able to navigate this is as I've done research, I've seen a lot of different people's stories and what all of these different terms and feelings mean to them. And it all means different than what it means to me, but I've been able to relate and empathize to then take it and apply it to my life in a way that feels good and intentional to me. And that's the great thing about learning and identifying with your gender, is being able to navigate it and the way that feels good in your body. I was struggling for a while with understanding my gender because I don't have a problem with the fact that I was born female. And I had a hard time understanding that non-binary and being born female could exist simultaneously and not affect each other. Like, I can still love the fact that I was born a woman and still not fit inside the binary box of female. And I adore that. And also, I'm grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it. I've started to buy and identify I've started to buy more men's clothes, and I haven't worn a dress or a skirt in years now, but I don't even own any in my closet. And all of the signs were there when I was talking to my partner about it, and we were navigating it together as a couple and just navigating feelings around it. It came up as something that he said was, I always figured that you were going to transition to using they, them pronouns at some point. And to me, that was an indicator of like, oh, I just haven't been honest with myself about that this is really how I identify and how I want to show up in the world. But people who are really close to me can see it and understand it. And will he understand what's fully going on in my body? No, but we're able to have conversations and communicate about it, which is a beautiful thing. And there's so many resources out there. If you want to learn more about sex, sexuality, gender, I encourage you to go take some resources. Me giving my opinion and my short definition obviously is not a full grand scheme or scope of what exists. And so again, this is just my experience, and I'm talking from myself. And that's all that I can do, is use my inner dialogue to speak my truth. And that's why this space exists, because I use my inner dialogue to speak my truth. And at the end of the day, like, I am a beautiful human that has so much love to give this world, and empathy and hope and joy for the future. And me being a human who uses they, them pronouns and identifies as non-binary does not take away any of those wonderful things about me. And I still have all of the flaws that are attached to me too while using those pronouns. For a long time, as pronouns were becoming a big aspect of the media and becoming a big piece of conversation, I didn't fully understand it. And I didn't have people in my life that I needed to understand it for. And now that I am the person in my life that I need to understand it for, there's been a lot of navigating and questions and curiosity. And if this episode sparks that up in you, use the internet to find out some answers for yourself. I highly encourage it. One of my favorite things is to go on TikTok and just search a keyword that I'm interested in learning about and seeing what people are saying, and take what resonates and leave the rest. And obviously, if it's about something factual, like, do your research and find the facts for yourself too. But there's some really interesting people just in the world who are talking about these topics and who have human life experience to pull off of to share what it is like for them and their experience and how it feels in their bodies. I was watching a YouTube video about signs that you might be non-binary, and one of them at the end was saying, if you're watching this video, this might be a sign. If you're questioning your gender, this might be a sign. And through that, like, I've been doing tapping on identifying my gender. And as I was doing tapping, even before watching that video, out of my brain came the term non-binary. And accepting and saying it as it is and as it is my identity. And it took me probably a month after that tapping session to even be able to say it to another person. But it's all part of my process and my journey of figuring this out and being able to be comfortable in my own skin and identify in the world in a way that feels good. And, I'm still scared. There's a lot of people and conversations that I am not sure that I feel fully safe around yet. And I'm at a point with this journey where I will have to set boundaries. And if my boundaries are crossed, it is up to me to make sure that I'm maintaining what that boundaries mean. And if I have to walk away or remove myself from a situation or even break relationships, that's something that I am open and willing to do because my safety is important to me. And I don't want to be in situations where I'm unsafe or unloved. And if you can't love me for this part of me, it's me. This is who I am. And my gender identity is how I think in the morning. It's how I get dressed every day. It's how I cut my hair. It's how I embody this bodysuit. And it doesn't make up all of me, but it does make up a huge part of me. And being able to be respected with my pronouns and being respected with who I am and how I show up for the world is important. And it's important to me. And I understand it so greatly now for marginalized communities who do not get to show up fully in the world as them because of politics or community opinions or religion or the school system. There's whatever it might be, or whether family just disowns them for being themselves. And I have a lot of love and empathy for people in the world who are navigating their gender and trying to figure out this really confusing thing inside of your body. And when you maybe not have the resources or the people who are there to support you. And I navigated this on my own, and I navigated it with my therapist, but it was mainly on my own. And then after I kind of had a basis of what it meant to me, going and searching out for resources and learning more and finding community in this world. And that's still what I'm aiming to do. But I'm very much a person that I like to understand what it means to me first before going and searching out other people's opinions, because I want my opinion to be at least an outline sketch of how I think and feel, so that I'm not just absorbing everybody else's opinions and thoughts. And so it was an isolating journey for a while. And I hermited for a bit because it's hard to want to talk to people and when you just don't feel safe to. And I'm realizing a lot of this is also connected to the depressive season I went through in December, and not being open and willing to look at the thoughts and feelings that I was having inside my body. And it all is now connecting and making a lot more sense. And it's something I'm going to keep talking about and keep bringing up in this space. And I know that, especially with some of the guest episodes that I'm working on, bringing into this space, that it is going to show up and it's going to bring in community in here and have safety for people's inner dialogue to talk about these topics like gender. And I'm so here for that. So excited for that. It's a beautiful, beautiful topic. And I love that I get to cultivate conversation and my inner dialogue around it. I've just had a beautiful couple of weeks since I've really leaned into this knowledge and knowing of who I am and embodying it fully. My word for the year is embodiment. If you're new here, and as I am embodying myself and embodying all that is me, the universe is really gifting me with the right synchronicities and people at the right moments that I need them, so that I can cultivate what's next for me. It's fucking awesome. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the synchronicities. I'm here for the beauty that is entering into my life and all the growth that it's bringing. And I'm excited to begin sharing that with this community further, especially once some real roots have taken hold and foundation is built. And I'm excited to share, excited for all that is moving in my life that is bringing about beautiful, beautiful growth and change. And this is just the beginning. Me showing up as me and embodying all of me is just the beginning. So my preferred name is ABSD. My preferred pronouns are they, them. And that is how I prefer to show up in the world. That is how I prefer to be called and referred to. And it is going to be a transition. And the greatest thing that I can ask from people is that you are trying to respect my needs and wants. And I have so much grace to give. And if you slip up, that's okay. I slip up because we're learning. But the key thing for me is that you respect me and respect my boundaries and respect that that's how I want to be called and referred to in this life. And that's all. That's it. That's it. Thanks for being on this journey with me and sitting in this space with me today as I'm also just navigating this conversation and navigating sitting in my inner dialogue with it and figuring out the right words or explanations on how to bring about what I'm talking about. And I am grateful for all of you for sitting and listening, being with me on this journey as we journey through this beautiful life together. It's a beautiful, beautiful life. And I love each and every one of you so greatly, so greatly. Thanks for being you. I hope today you can go out, love loudly, take up space, be your awesome self, and know that your uniqueness is needed and seen in this world. It is a beautiful gift that the world needs. I love you. Bye.